there always seems to be this curiosity of what goes on in the Jewish community, what's really going on, what big scandals are there. And I often wonder if the reason there's such a appetite to unpack the dirty laundry of the religious community is coming from an insecurity that people, want to convince themselves that the reason they're not religious is because, come on, even the religious have so many scandals. So what we often do is we sit there, we put people on a pedestal, but then we're not comfortable putting them on the pedestal, so we smash them down. So we take a celebrity, we worship them, and then we start feeling very insecure. Why do they deserve to be worshipped? They're just as human as us. So we smash them. That's what happens in Hollywood. That's what happens in the business world. You're like, this person, amazing, till they smash. And what happens also in religion is you look and you see, I wonder if people like have this like semi-guilt, maybe I should be more involved. And then you're like, my unorthodox life comes out and you discover, oh, Mazel Tov, you thought that, I'm going to talk like a Talmudic scholar, that the Frumis are more moral and kinder and more generous. And now we show you they are limiting and they are pathetic and they are constraining. Aha! Who needs it anyway? But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about something parallel to that. That was just an opening. This, having grown up from, I'm aware of a certain condition. It's called naturally from. Naturally from is certain people who are born closed-minded, who are born what you might call right-wingers. They see the world through very conservative, very small, limited, very limited view. And these people could be religious, or they could not even be religious. In other words, they might very well not be religious, but they're living a religious lifestyle in the way that, at least the way we portray religion, as confined. In other words, religion doesn't confine people. People confine themselves. I know many people who would never dare declare themselves religious, but they are so close-minded. And many people who are religious in quote unquote observant, whatever, but are very broad-minded. It does happen to be that religion will attract people who are looking for rules. It will attract people who want a safe space. So yes, you do happen to have quite a few people who are naturally conservative who become religious. And therefore you do have in the religious community a lot of people who are closed-minded and limited, etc. But religion doesn't limit you. You limit you. And you just use a religion as an excuse. And that's something that Chief Rabbi Sachs always used to talk about when he used to talk about how is it that Muslim terrorists or whatever, Christian terrorists, how could they use God's name? And his argument always was, humans kill each other. Religion doesn't kill people, humans kill each other. And if the human doesn't have the wisdom to understand the religion and apply it in the correct way, then they will use religion to kill. In other words, if we're honest with ourselves, even if, let's say, all these TV series are 100% accurate, they are describing the frum community to the T. Who are they describing? Why would somebody run away from the first place? If you grow up in a home that's not limited, if you grow up in a home that's gracious and generous and broad-minded, and that's the way the religion is taught, you have nowhere to run. The people who run grew up very limited and they feel like they have to break out. And those are the stories we hear over and over and over. It's a miracle that more people don't run away. Because yes, there are limiting people, but there are limiting people in every environment. In every environment, there are people who literally cannot question their life, cannot think, cannot dare to wonder about something else, cannot dare to criticize their upbringing, cannot dare to think in color, and they can only see things in black and white. That's not a religious problem, that's a human problem. There are people, unfortunately, way too many, who don't see nuance. I would argue the majority of people don't think in nuance. That's why the world is becoming so polarized. What's the definition of political polarization? Why are we becoming so divided? Because we can't talk with nuance. I'm a right winger, you're a left winger, we can't talk. That's the opposite of nuance. That is the definition of closed-minded. So religion doesn't confine you. Your nature confines you. Your ideas of how you're supposed to live confine you. I've seen religious homes. I could talk about my home that I grew up in. We used to, Friday night meals, as we were getting older, turned into battlefields. I mean it. We literally would scream and argue, maybe sometimes a bit disrespectfully, but we discussed everything. We unpacked everything. There was once in a while, if you know me by now, I would push a bit too far, and then we'll be like, okay, you've gone a bit too far. But we were able to discuss and analyze and unpack and argue. And my father would look at that. I remember my father wasn't much of a thinker. He was much more of a doer. And he would sit there thinking and saying, like, would call me Itzy. That's the name I have at home, Itzy. Oh, Itzy, I don't know what you want. Whatever. Okay, just argue. And we would just argue and argue. And I've seen many Friday night tables, religious and not religious, where you're not allowed to open your mouth. Shtum. You can't talk. You can't engage. You can't question anything. It's blasphemy. You can't question your parents. You can't, the second you question your parents, it's chutzpah. And by the way, I am very anti-chutzpah. But questioning your parents is not called chutzpah. It's called developing a brain. And holding your parents accountable is called adolescence. In other words, like, don't talk to me like that. Why not? Why not? Why not? They're holding you accountable. That's fine. And that's the only way they're making sense of the world. Do you want them to think that you're perfect? No. And the only way they make sense of your imperfections is by attacking it. And then, at some stage, every teenager has to think their parents are idiots. And then they come around. But the point is, are you allowing an atmosphere of breathing? Are you allowing an atmosphere at home where people can be nurtured and breathe? Their ideas can breathe. Or do we suck all the oxygen out of the room that you literally cannot say, don't talk. That's a sensitive thing. No, we don't talk about this stuff. It's too sensitive, too delicate. Let's not talk about grandma. There's a variable there. Let's not talk about Uncle Jaime. And let's not talk about religion. Ooh, that's a sensitive topic. And let's not talk about immigration. Everything's like, ooh, delicate, sensitive, uncomfortable. No, that's confinement. That is, for me, the story of my unorthodox life or unorthodox or all these TV shows is not religion. It's people who grew up in constrained environments, deciding they're done, they cannot handle anymore, they want to leave. And I agree, constrained environments is not a way to grow. It's like raising an animal in a cage. The animal needs freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. But if a parent or a human being is naturally closed-minded, then everything will fit within their closed-mindedness. Their religion will fit into their closed-mindedness. And even their ideas about vaccinations fit in. It's almost like predictable who's an anti-vaxxer sometimes. It's actually ridiculous. The more right-wing you are in your politics, the bigger chance you are to be an anti-vaxxer. The more left-wing you are, it's predictable. You'll be anti-Israel. There's no nuance. There's no, oh, well, I'm a bit left-wing in this way, I'm a bit right-wing in that way. No. Fit the mold. That's narrow thinking. Why? Why think narrow? Why can't you be multiple? Why can't you be multiple ideas and multiple perspectives? Why can't you handle that your child sees the world in a very different way and appreciate it and value it and nurture it? We don't bring children into the world to create clones. We bring children into the world to facilitate human beings, to help human beings who have our blood and have our values go live their lives, to raise people who could do well, but to raise them to be themselves. And what's getting to me so much is it's not the show. What's getting to me is how many people are narrow and how COVID has made many of us narrower, more intolerant of different perspectives, more judgmental of different ways of life. And yes, you have to judge that there's not everything's okay. There's parameters. You know, my father would say, okay, you've gone a bit too far. You know, I was at the stage, I was questioning everything. Everything. Okay, sometimes you question and you go a bit too far, but rather risk on the side of non-caution. Rather risk on the side of exploring too much than exploring too little. Because if you don't have an adolescence and you don't have a time to explore your identity and broaden your horizons, then it will bite you for the rest of your life until you do it. I meet 50-year-olds who never thought beyond this. They're terrified to think there, but they have to. That's the only way to live. You can't live limited and have a quality of life. Denial works X amount of time and eventually it destroys you. Put your head in the sand over and over and over. No, we have to explore the parts of our society that are unhealthy. We have to be able to explore the parts of our family that are unhealthy, not in a critical, angry way, self-pity, sitting in therapy and saying, my mommy destroyed me, but in a way of empowerment. This is the issues, this is what has to deal with, and have an open conversation about it. No, we don't talk about this. No. You know, there's some siblings who can sit and, you know, laugh about their parents, laugh about the home they grew up in, and something, you know, throw a nasty joke about their parent, and maybe it's chutzpah, fine. And then there are other families that, no, we don't talk about the parents. No, they're sacrosanct. No. I used to think the latter was holy, but having spent way too much time dealing with people who, from both environments, say the worst thing you could do is raise children who worship you or are too scared to question you. The only way they could develop themselves is by having an honest view of where they come from, what they liked about their parents, what they didn't like about the parents, to kvetch, to reminisce. You know, like in my family, because there's 12 siblings, so we have multiple WhatsApp groups. Each WhatsApp group is like, there's the married ones, there's the single ones, there's the boys, there's the girls, there's with my mom, without my mom, with the in-laws, without the in-laws. Like I can't even, like, tons of WhatsApp groups, 7 or 8, and that's on a consistent basis. Then there comes a, you know, like we have to buy a gift for somebody, and that's its own WhatsApp group. And those are the groups I know about. Then there's the groups that I wasn't even invited on and I don't know about. And yeah, sometimes you vent and you analyze and you unpack, and that's the space that you make, the breathing room you have to unpack your life, to unpack it. But so many of us are so scared of our kids unpacking their life. We're so scared of our spouse going to therapy and talking about us. We're so scared of our kids going to therapy and kvetching about us. No, I did the best I could. No, please don't judge me. It's part of their journey. It's part of their life. That's the way they live. That's the way they're going to find themselves. Be gracious enough to allow them to find their way in this instead of constantly limiting them. I was talking to my therapist recently, and you have to talk to a therapist, especially when you're dealing with so much craziness. And she said something very wise. She used this word limited, and she says, some people grow up in limited homes and some people grow up in unlimited homes. And I never heard that definition before, and that's why it really got me thinking. Unlimited homes doesn't mean there's no rules, but it means nobody's choking your dreams. Nobody's choking your options. Nobody's choking your failures. Nobody's choking your successes. They're allowing you to evolve in a natural habitat. One way of thinking about it is analogy is the difference between raising an animal in a zoo or in a game reserve. You could keep the animal alive in a zoo, but you're constricting it. There's no question about it. You're limiting the animal's everything. This poor lion is locked in a space that's 5 meters or whatever, 20 meters by 20 meters instead of having the whole forest. It does something to you. So too, you could raise your children in a zoo, in an unnatural environment not with rules. Rules are okay, but with constrictions. We don't go there. We don't talk about that. That's chutzpah. Respect your parents. No, we don't allow your individual opinions. If this is what we said, this is the way it's going to be. We don't allow you to have meltdowns because that is an expression of your emotions and you're not entitled, etc., etc. Limiting. Choke the person. And then you raise limited children. You raise people who feel that success is beyond them, that they cannot dream as big as they want because life is out to screw them. Sorry for the language. Life is out to mess them over. Life is out to tell you that you're not entitled to a voice. Those are the kinds of people that raise children often who are victims in a marriage because they don't actually know what to stand up for. And by their behavior, they somehow enable abuse. And again, I'm never blaming the victim. That's not what I'm doing, but I do believe strongly that if a child is raised a certain way, it's a much smaller chance they'll end up a victim than if they're raised a different way. And that statistics show it. People with certain kind of backgrounds, people that don't have a stable, healthy background will end up in abusive relationships on a much higher percent. Mistakes happen, but usually that's what happens because the kid wasn't told that they're entitled to a voice. The kid wasn't told that they're entitled to express themselves. The kid wasn't told that they're entitled to say, me. I'm not saying to raise selfish children. I'm not saying to raise children who are chutzpah. I'm talking about raising children who are unlimited. And COVID, back to COVID, the last 18 months with all the pessimism and all the negativity is causing more children to be limited. And I'll say even more so. Allow me to criticize. I think a lot of South African parents limit their children by doing things like, this country has no future. You're never going to make it here. Go. You have to go elsewhere. If you don't get into medical school, you won't do well. You need a degree. You don't need anything. You can encourage. But for me, those are the definitions of limiting. No one told me what I needed to do. I wasn't told I have to become a rabbi. I wasn't told I have to go to university, which I didn't. I wasn't told, I was just taught values and made a bunch of mistakes until I found my way. And during the time, it was miserable. But in hindsight, I'm so grateful for my parents that didn't limit me. They didn't say, do this or don't do that. It's not as if we were trained to be rabbis. Nobody in my family, I mean, they all have smicha, but nobody in my family is a rabbi of a shul. They're all involved in education. Nobody said, do this, focus. If you want to chase your dreams, focus this narrow route. No. Go, explore, make mistakes, try out a million different things. It's painful to watch, but that's your right as a human being to fail. It's your right to dream and hit your head, to fly and knock your head and fall down and then try to fly again and try to fly again. And yes, to receive guidance. But so many of us constrict our children. You have to do this. You have to emigrate. You have to get this education. You have to get married in this way and that way and this and that. And like, stop. Stop. That's not your mandate. And it's so disabling. And we often do it in marriages as well. Spouses will do it to each other, dictating their lives. The tyrannical husband, the nagging wife. It's like this choke the other person. And we think it's an expression of love. No, it's not. It's an expression of tremendous disrespect. They're entitled to live their life. And that's why one of the worst expressions of marriage I ever heard is two people becoming one. Why in the world should two people become one? That's homicide. Well, which person dies now? Why do two people become one? Two people stay two. And they build a loving relationship. But what's this idea of two people becoming one? And who's the one? Give me a break. Respecting each other means to allow them unlimited potential. And for me, going back to religion doesn't limit me. Religion, as I said yesterday, offers me boundaries, offers me perspectives, offers me some framework to work in. And then it says, soar. Do whatever you want. Be a rabbi, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a stay-at-home dad. Do what you want. Hashem doesn't tell me where to channel my life. He gives me rules, he gives me mandates, he gives me obligations. But like when people sit there saying religion dictates every area of your life, what are you talking about? Who dictated my schedule today? Other than the fact that I woke up and I davened Shachris this morning, and I davened Mincha Ma'ariv, and my food is kosher, but that's not constricting. Whatever, that's my diet. Every person has a diet. Like, what does that mean? That's like this religion is like dictating your life. I don't see it. And Shabbos, I don't see it as dictatorial. I see it as enabling. I could use it as a dictatorial. And if I am a closed-minded individual, I will be teaching Shabbos to my children from a place of closed-mindedness. Don't do that. You're going to burn in hell. Don't turn the switch on. No, don't. God just slapped you across the face. See why you tripped down the stairs? Because you turned the switch on. That is limited. That's pathetic. That's fear-mongering. That's what politics is today, so limiting. We don't have any future. We don't have this. The conservatives are worried. The liberals are going to destroy the country. And the liberals, the conservatives, this party is going to destroy the party. That party, the ANC is the threat. The EFF is the threat. The DA is the threat. This is the threat. The riots. Stop limiting. How small are your dreams? How easy is it to knock you off your pedestal, off your dream, off your fly? How hard is it to remove your wings, to cut off your wings? Each and every one of us deserves wings to fly. Not to be anything we want to be, because that's sometimes dangerous. If I want to be a serial killer, I shouldn't be anything I want to be. But to dream as highly and as broadly as I possibly can on my life. And no, it's not religion that constricts. It's bad ideas of life. It's natures, it's small-minded natures that constrict oneself. So here's my request. Enjoy all these good TV series about the Orthodox. It's entertaining. Oh my gosh, really? It's not a hole in the sheet and some other, conspiracies. Fine, like, get rid of some of the crazy ideas and watch these shows and enjoy them. But don't for a moment think this is about religion. It's not about religion. Never was. Closed-minded people will use religion in their way, just like they'll use anything else. That they'll use culture, and they'll use lifestyle, and they'll use family legacies. So ask yourself a simple question. Don't ask yourself, are ultra-Orthodox limited? Ask yourself a simple question. Are you limited? How broad are you? How open are you to new ideas? How open are you to change and to hear ideas that will turn your lifestyle upside down because they're true? How open are you to be educated by your children from the wisdom that they pick up? How open are you to be threatened by them going a different way than you and still respecting it? How open are you to allow your spouse to go on their journey and not force them to go on your journey? Don't question the Orthodox. It's always easier to look at the other, to see the other, to convince yourself, I don't live in Mea Sharim, I'm free. No, you're not. There are people in Mea Sharim who are freer than you. I'm not saying you, everyone, if you're a limited person. There's people much freer than you anywhere, in any religious community, in any community. So here's my call. My call is, as we come close to the month of Elul, we're coming to the month of repentance, the month of Tshuva, the month of a new start. We're coming out of a third lockdown. And what lockdowns do is they limit. That's what it is. Don't do this, don't do this. Limit, limit, limit. Let's literally release ourselves, release our bones, take a stretch, get out of that small, narrow, all hope is lost and it's not going anywhere and this and that. And yes, some of us have gone through tremendous tragedy and some of us have been really beaten up and some of us have lost loved ones. And these things, what they tend to do is they constrict us. They make us feel like the world is just tight. But that's such a terrible way to live. I used to always, I grew up in a home with parents. My mother grew up in Russia. My father's parents grew up in Russia. But Stalin was very much a factor in the world, in our world. But even though he died in 1953, Stalin, whatever, he created, him and Lenin created the Russia of 70 years of communism and all the after effects of that. And every once in a while, when my parents would do something really constricting, thank God they didn't do it often enough, I would say it, can we allow Stalin to die? Stalin's dead. Okay, the KGB is not after us. We don't have to hold secrets. It's not a big secret how old you are. It's not a big secret if people find out that we had a fever. The world's not going to come to an end. I remember one time I spent a year in Switzerland, and a summer in Switzerland, and I learned there something, that the Swiss will never, at least some of them, will never acknowledge they're not feeling well. It's even if you have a fever. You show up in shul the next day. Why weren't you in shul yesterday? I had an errand. Why can't you say, it's embarrassing? These are all the legacies of constrictions, all these things like, no, I can't acknowledge my mental health. I can't acknowledge my journey. I can't acknowledge my pain. I can't acknowledge my joy. I can't. In Kabbalah, they say, bli gvul, live a life of no limits. Live a life of no constraints. Mitzvahs aren't constraints. Mitzvahs are enablers. Constraints is what we put on ourselves. It's what we put on our children. So let's let go of these constraints. Let go and fly. And whether you're ultra-Orthodox or you're not, it's not what matters. What truly matters is, do you believe that Hashem gave you an infinite potential and that He wants you to soar? And if you believe that, you could soar in any environment. And if you don't believe in that, you could drown in any environment. Shkoyach, everybody.